All right, boils and ghouls. So we have David Cronenberg's remake of the 58 film The Fly by, was it? Oh, I always forget. Something Newman or something like that. I'm pretty sure the director. And we had Vincent Price in that movie. And I forget who the lead guy is. David something. I haven't seen the original Fly in a long while. Now, in the original film, which is based off the short story, right, from 57, the year before, the fly creature that we have is just a guy with the head of a fly. In this film, we end up having some of the greatest practical effects in a film. Like, this would make absolutely the top 10 list of greatest practical effects in a movie. It's not quite up there with The Thing for me and Day of the Dead, Evil Dead 2, a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but this is up there. I mean, and the choice to make this a gradual transformation, what a brilliant decision, and just all the stages of Seth Brundle evolving into Brundle Fly. And I think pretty sure they named each part of the transformation. There was like 8 different stages, and they started giving him nicknames and stuff, which is hilarious because so much of the effectiveness of this movie has to do with the effects. But it's not just the effects, this film. I mean, everything is just masterfully done here. Now, when it comes to Cronenberg, on a few of his films, Scanners, which is in my top 40 films of all time, The Brood as well, which is my favorite Cronenberg movie. I love Rabid. I just recently saw Shivers a few months ago for the first time. Loved that. Pretty much every Cronenberg film I've seen, I love. The Dead Zone. It goes on and on. So I definitely still need to brush up on my Cronenberg a little bit. I think this is his most technically well-made film. Just everything about it, the performances from Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. And I mean, how do you not adore Gina Davis? All of us loved Gina Davis and still love Gina Davis. She's just so great in this. The whole love story between Seth and her, Veronica, is so well written in this. Her performance, like during some of the scenes where she's seeing him degrade like this right in front of her face, like when his jaw falls off, or when he spews the liquid shit that he eats with onto like the donut, then his ear falls off. All of that, like her shock and the way that she portrays all that, and just her emotions of just, oh my god, like I'm falling in love with this guy, and then finds out that she is pregnant with his baby. And she doesn't want to see him go through any of this. Who would want to see anybody go through this? And the way that she shows all those emotions on screen here in this film, I think it's just absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely excellent. Goldblum is an actor I've always loved. There's nothing I don't love from him. I think he's just a very incredibly witty person and just has this charisma about him, this sarcasm to him a little bit, and it's hard to describe, but you know Jeff Goldblum, you know what I'm talking about, and his performance in here as Seth Brundle is excellent as well. Now, this movie got the sequel, The Fly 2, a few years later. I haven't seen it in forever. I think the only one who returns is the old boyfriend of Veronica, Stathis or something. I forget the actor's name who's in this film. He returns, and then there's the kid of the Fly or something. I don't know. I haven't seen it forever. I don't remember anything about it really, or if it's good or worthwhile. But I do know the sequel was directed by Chris Wallace, I believe, who did the effects on this Cronenberg film, The Fly. So he went from the effects artist, and I think it was another guy who did the makeup effects, Dubois, I forget the first name. They ended up winning an Academy Award for effects work for this film. And you goddamn right they did. The score in this film is absolutely excellent by the great Howard Shore, who's done so many scores. So without further ado, let's get into David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986. But I thought that you had to have the paid version of StreamYard for custom backgrounds. You don't. So I just found that out 2 days ago. So let me know how you guys like this. If you like just the logo in the background or changing it every now and then throughout whatever film we're talking about, I'd like to hear feedback on that. Now, 2 fun facts with this movie. It's produced by Mel Brooks from his company. And the tagline, be afraid, be very afraid, I'm pretty sure I read that this is the film that started that phrase by using it as the tagline. That be afraid, be very afraid wasn't a phrase, wasn't a thing before this movie. That's what I'm pretty sure it said when I read it. So someone, if they know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the tagline for this movie was the first time that phrase was used and went on to be used in so many movies and other mediums and stuff, television, even video games. So there's another little fun fact right there. Be afraid. Be very afraid. For Lost World in the mouth of the Lord of the Flies. But that doesn't come out for another year. So we open up with Veronica and Seth Brundle. And they're talking. She is a science journalist, and he is a very eccentric scientist who is working on teleportation. He's built these 2 big pods that when you put something through one of them, it actually breaks down what you put into the pod on a molecular, cellular level, and then rebuilds it completely on a cellular level in the other teleporter. And that's how this is supposed to work. Now, this isn't too far-fetched from actual science. There have been theories that teleportation could work in a way similar to this by just some way of breaking down energy or breaking down something to its core cellular or atomic level and having it be rebuilt. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of been done with like 3D printing. It's not the same, of course, it's not teleportation, but it's making something from scratch from just what it's being told to. And that's the whole thing with his teleportation system here. He has to feed the computer his own, human knowledge. He had the whole conversation later on in the movie with the flesh. That's why he has an issue putting a living thing through when he tries putting the baboon in. We all know what happens to that baboon. He doesn't come out well, beyond dead. So he realizes he actually has to teach the computer about like flesh and about how that all plays into being broken down and then reassembled on the other side in the other teleporter. I honestly think this is one of the best mad scientist films. Reanimator is usually my number one that I go to and mention every time that subgenre comes up. But then you have the classics, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Frankenstein, of course. But more modern day, I'd say The Fly and Reanimator have to be the most effectively made mad scientist films. Now, I know they had a few different people in mind for the role of Seth Brundle. I'm pretty sure one of them was Richard Dreyfuss, but they went with Goldblum because he was willing to work with and under heavy prosthetics, which Dreyfuss and a few of the others that they were thinking of for the role, they wouldn't work with prosthetic work. So, I mean, you got to hand it to Goldblum, man. Like, can you imagine being in that chair every day and getting all the different layers as he ages? Or he describes it as rapid aging, as his cells are fused with that of the fly. So as he, quote unquote, ages, there's all the different layers of prosthetic work and stuff that he had to go through every day and get increasingly more and more as he turns into Brundlefly. So, I mean, it takes something. It takes something to work under prosthetic work. Look at Robert Englund sitting in the chair for 5-6 hours for every Nightmare film, every day, just to get into do that makeup for Freddy Krueger that afterwards he would just start ripping it off at the end of the day. He'd start ripping it, throwing pieces on the floor. People would be picking them up after him. And then they'd ask like other people, the crew, like, which part of him do I have? What part do I? Great stuff, but it's a lot of work. So Seth ends up bringing Ronnie to his flat, his mad lab of science, and he ends up showing her and telling her about his research about this teleportation device. I love how she says, like, ooh, designer phone booths. She's like, you got a nice jukebox in here. Her humor is great in this movie, too. She's just such a well-written character. As a musician, it bothers me whenever a band is not really playing the music, especially when it's very obvious, when they're changing chords on guitar and stuff, and the person's just going and not even moving their hands. Like, that bothers me a lot. Just a pet peeve. Does someone know if Jeff Goldblum's a musician? He's absolutely playing the piano here. Like, there's no way he's faking that. He knows how to play piano. So I guess I never knew Jeff Goldblum was a musician too. I absolutely love the fact that he wears the same set of clothes every single day. He has just 5 of the same pairs of clothing, same suit, same shirt, same pants on his hangers in his closet. And he says that it's a trick he learned from Einstein, which Einstein used to do. So Seth ends up asking for a personal item of hers. And says, jewelry, anything that has particular meaning to you, that's uniquely you. And she ends up pulling off her pantyhose. And it says that I don't wear jewelry. Now, sidetrack, but I've never gotten the whole appeal of pantyhose. I really never have. I mean, yeah, you can be attracted to someone's legs and stuff, but like, it's just like a fucking big sock for your legs. So, I don't know. Just like, it's never been a turn on for me or anything like that. Like, he's looking at it like, oh wow, it's just she took her stocking off. Like, I don't know. It has nothing to do with anything, but it is something I noticed, and it is something that's never had any appeal to me. So let me know what you think about pantyhose, and I don't know if it ever did anything for you. Back to The Fly. And don't worry, get excited. We're only about 6 minutes and 58 seconds into this movie. But like with most of my perfect films and masterpiece movies, they always deserve their time. I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. So Pantyhose goes through, ends up teleporting to the other telepod. And she goes to check it out. And at first, she doesn't understand. And he says to her, like, no, you understand. Your brain can't comprehend it yet. And how could a brain comprehend that? Like, if you saw that in person, first of all, as a skeptic who always wants to believe in conspiracy theories and aliens, that's 100% though, I always say. Aliens absolutely exist. They're on this planet. They've been on this planet. Whole nother thing, cryptids, all that stuff. But I'm very skeptical. I would be checking that room for everything, thinking this is a fucking hoax. Like, that's just how I am. I'd be checking the tubes to make sure it didn't get vacuumed through from one to the other. I would be checking everything, and then I probably still would not believe it until the person showing it to me ends up going through it and then ends up turning into a fly. Speaking of conspiracy theories, I love the fact that she asked him, how can you keep this quiet? And his whole speech of that he compartmentalizes, just like the moon landing conspiracy, that he doesn't even know how half the stuff works inside there. He has it outsourced and other people make all the different parts, but nobody knows what the actual project is. So she ends up going back to her ex-boyfriend and boss who got her into journalism. He was a professor at college that she went to, and they're ex-lovers. I love the line from Gina Davis a little later when he asks, is he still in love with you? The way she says it, the look on her face when she says, how can he not be? But I mean, he's not a full dickhead through this movie. I mean, he doesn't believe Seth at first and doesn't believe Veronica when she tells him what she witnessed. He says he conned you. It's a con man. And that's exactly what I would think too. And then they end up going to lunch, and he ends up having another conversation explaining more about what this could do for society. And I love the fact he hates motor vehicles. He gets sick in cars, motion sickness, and is just perfect that Maybe he started working on this because he doesn't like traveling in any type of vehicle. He gets sick. So he said, fuck it, I want to teleport one place to the other instantly. Could be the reason he started all this. I don't think it was worth turning into a fly and dying, but I mean, hey, you got to go for what you dream. Then we get the infamous baboon scene. And let me tell you, the effects of the baboon's corpse after it teleports from one to the other, the sound that it makes and just the effects work, like the way it's a puddle of goop of guts and flesh and blood, and it's like twitching and stuff. That looks so good. Are you serious? This is what I mean. It's just the practical effects in this movie are just fantastic. And not even just for his transformation to the fly, just stuff like that too. Then we get the great scene when she is tape recording him. And this is when he starts explaining, it doesn't know about the flesh yet. He has to try to teach this computer and program it to understand flesh is very important to something living's survival upon teleportation. Then you're the luckiest man in the world to have Gina Davis lean over to you and say, you're very cute, right? And then just a night of passionate lovemaking. We also have him trying to put a stake through, which is a great idea. Start with something that is flesh, but it's not living, and you can't kill a fucking animal or baboon sending it through trying to run your tests. Send in a stake. So he sends a stake in, and then they do the taste test. The Pepsi Coke challenge, and she instantly, after tasting the teleported steak, says, no, it doesn't taste right. It tastes very synthetic. So you better get on fixing that machine. I also like the fact that when she first sees the teleporter in action with the pantyhose and goes to Stathis, her ex-boyfriend, she's all about getting the story, even after he says not to. She runs out. She's like, I'm getting the story. This is like unbelievable. This is the story of a lifetime. And she goes and he says that he's a con man, Seth. And then as she falls for him and their romance deepens, she couldn't give a shit about the story. She's just happy for him and what this will do for the world and what this will do for him and possibly them, if they end up together, which I wish they did. I kind of wish he didn't die at the end, but it has to happen. Then we get the successful teleportation of another baboon. Where the fuck's he getting all these baboons? I couldn't get a baboon if I tried real hard. Where'd you get a baboon? The black market? Does he steal them from a zoo? Does he know a zookeeper? How many previous baboons has he sent through that thing? And had them explode into blood and guts twitching around and making a crazy sound. Because when she's sitting down at lunch with him earlier and he starts saying what happens when a living thing gets sent through, when she asks the question to him, he says, not while we're eating. So he's seen it happen before. So where's he getting these baboons? Why is he putting so many innocent baboons through if he knows it's going to happen again? This has nothing to do with anything. Whatever, but it's just something to think about. John Getz. That's who plays Stathis. I think she just said Stathis. John Getz. He's all right in this. I mean, he's obviously the low point compared to Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum, but he does a good job. But now he wants the story. He says, no, you're right. And it was your discovery, so it's my discovery because I sent you to that party. Stathis also finds out that she's sleeping with Seth and doesn't take it too bad because he can't. It's not his fucking girl. They broke up mad long ago. But that does kind of light a fire in him to try to maybe even steal this discovery from Seth if he could possibly can. When the baboon's sitting on the couch and he's looking at him and he seems fine, and there's the fly buzzing around him, and the sound design is fantastic in this movie too, like with pretty much every Cronenberg film I've ever seen. But the fly buzzing around, just hearing that buzzing sound, what a great way to set up what we know is going to happen. So Seth gets kind of jealous, thinking that Ronnie is still sleeping with Stathis, and he gets drunk and he ends up saying, fuck it, I'm going through. Great effects with like the light and everything coming out of the telepod after he teleports. And then he feels better than he's ever felt in his life. Like saying that being built back up on a cellular level is like some type of rejuvenation process. And that makes sense too. Like, I mean, if you're rebuilding cells, then it would make sense that they're newer, stronger cells. See, this is just another science fiction movie that works completely for me. As sci-fi, as I always say, is not my go-to genre unless it's very, very original. And this movie really is. So it was kind of bothering me that I couldn't remember the other actors who were considered for the role. So I looked it up. Mel Brooks wanted Pierce Brosnan to play, which I can't picture that movie. I can't, as much as I love Brosnan. I mean, GoldenEye is my favorite James Bond film. He's my favorite James Bond, tied with Sean Connery. Like, he's my favorite, more modern one. I think he's so fantastic of an actor, but I cannot picture him playing Seth Brundle. And Cronenberg was smart. He rejected that immediately. Rejected and shot down Mel Brooks. Then we had John Malkovich and John Lithgow, who are just two other phenomenal actors. Especially, I just have a soft spot for Lithgow. He's an actor I adore. And just growing up watching Third Rock from the Sun, he's hilarious. Then playing the Trinity Killer in Dexter season 4, which what a fucking performance he gives in that season. If you haven't seen Dexter, the show, absolutely give it a watch. And especially the first 4 seasons. After that, it gets kind of iffy, goes really up and down with quality, but what a great goddamn first 4 seasons. And Lithgow kills it in season 4. And then it was Michael Keaton also, which, I don't know, thinking with these actors, I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to see a version with Malkovich. Lithgow, I don't think I could see him playing this role in any way. As much as I love him, I can't see him playing Seth Brundle. Michael Keaton, I mean, he can play anything. But I think Goldblum just had, and always has had, that weird quirkiness to him, but that real witty, like I was saying, personality. That he was just able to slip into this very eccentric, awkward, but brilliant scientist. I can't really picture anybody else playing Seth in this film. It always had to be Goldblum. So Ronnie comes back over. He says that he went through. She's at first worried, freaked out. Says, you could have killed yourself. And they end up having a night of passionate lovemaking. They're fucking like bunny rabbits. She's like, I can't go on. How can you keep going? So he's just completely rejuvenated and feels like a new man. Then we have Ronnie realizing that something went wrong, because of just the way he's acting. And let me say this, Jeff Goldblum's performance in this argument, his whole little monologue about the flesh and penetration and the plasma pool, best acting scene in this film. For me, that I think is the best scene in this movie when it comes to just pure acting skills. He kills it in this scene. And Gina Davis, too, just with her reactions. Like when he storms out, the look she gives, just like she can't believe what just happened. Like, and has no idea what he's talking about. That's what I mean with Gina Davis. Just the way that she portrays all her emotions is just phenomenal. Plus, it doesn't hurt how gorgeous she is. So before he storms out after that whole brilliant scene, she sees the hairs on his back. The fly hairs, and cut him off. And then he goes and gets, what is her name, Trixie or something like that, because he wants Ronnie to go through the teleporter too, and they can be like the dynamic duo. And then, I mean, I love how warped it is later near the end when he wants her with the unborn baby inside of her to go through with him and become one being with 3 life forms together, like spliced together genetically. What a warped idea that is. And the way that he loses his mind at the end, too, it's just phenomenal. The look on her face when Seth opens the door and she sees Trixie, whatever the fuck her name is. And he says, oh, didn't I tell you I live with my mother? Mother, meet Trixie. And then when Trixie says, "Thanks for the great time," the look on Gina Davis's face, just like the pain you can see, the disappointment, the heartbreak that this person she cares for deeply and is falling in love with just slept with somebody else. I just can't praise Gina Davis's performance enough in this movie. So Ronnie ends up telling him that it is, in fact, insect hairs. She had them analyzed. And something obviously is wrong. And then we see Seth start to deteriorate. We got his face all fucked up. Then we get his nail just falling off, peeling off. And man, like I've always said, that's something that gets me. Eye trauma doesn't really get me too much. Like, I mean, for all the Italian horror I love, there's a ton of it. So I'm kind of desensitized to that too at this point. But fingernails, man, like in Ringu when Sadako was climbing up the well and her fingernails come off. Texas Chainsaw 3 when I forget the guy's name. He's getting dragged down the stairs by Leatherface and he's trying to grab on and it splits off. This too. I mean, such a simple effect, but it looks great and it really gets me squeamish. Now, after he finds out exactly what happened by checking the computer, seeing that a fly got into the teleporter and his genes were spliced with that of a fly. And he's starting to look worse and worse. And the effects, man, I just can't say enough about that either. The effects work and makeup just looks absolutely fantastic. You see this hideous fucking freak? It looks beautiful in a grotesque way, like much Cronenberg. Now, there is a scene cut from this movie that is very good effects-wise and very gory, the monkey cat scene. But they cut it because they wanted people to still sympathize with Seth's character, and that's going kind of overboard. Aside from killing who knows how many goddamn baboons, like I said earlier, then we get Brundlefly crawling around on the ceiling. All of that looks excellent with him on the walls. He's doing his little 80s aerobics video. Just great stuff. At least he's finding some, silver linings and stuff to all this. Nobody's going to die and turn into a fly. Then we have the great stuff when she's recording him and him showing how he eats and he spews the stuff on the donut. His ear falls off. And then she goes and hugs him crying, Seth, are you kidding me? I wouldn't go anywhere near that disease-ridden looking man under any circumstance. I don't care how much I love that person. You see what just happened in front of your eyes? He barfed up acid onto a donut and his ear fell off. And then you go press your head up right against his severed ear. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. Then, horrified to find out she is pregnant with Seth's baby. At first, she doesn't know what she wants to do, but then it really starts setting in. When did this happen? It most likely happened after he went through. And who knows what's growing inside her. And that, I think, is the best, if not one of the best, usages of the infamous body horror that David Cronenberg is just known for creating, that whole subgenre. More so than everything with Seth turning into the fly, in my opinion. Because, I'm not a woman. I've never been pregnant. I can't get pregnant. I mean, my first bout of menopause was kind of rough. The second and third hasn't been too bad. But I can't imagine the fear of having a living thing growing inside of you, terrified that it's a mutant creature or it's going to come out as a fly. The dream that she has with the big-ass fly larva that comes out of her vagina looks excellent. And her screams and everything, and she wakes up. All of that looks so good. And the gynecologist is played by David Cronenberg because Gina Davis was very uncomfortable if they had just some random stranger she didn't know play the gynecologist and, looking at her and stuff with her legs spread on the table. So she trusted David and she asked him, would you play the gynecologist? So we get a cameo from David Cronenberg, which is great. Then she actually goes to get the abortion and Brundlefly swoops in, grabs her, takes her back to his lair. So then Stathis shows up because he was with her at the abortion clinic, knows that Seth's taking her back to his place. And I love the effects when he spews the shit onto his hand and it corrodes, and all of that's great. He's going to spin it on his face, and then Ronnie shows up and begs for him to stop. Then he just turns completely and just, come on, man. That looks so good. It's unbelievable the work that went into the practical effects in this film, and all of it looks fantastic to this day. This has aged so well, the effects in this movie. That's when he has his warped idea. All three of them, unborn child, that could be a big ass larva, her and Seth will go through the teleporter, and all three will be spliced together. And Stathis is able to get up, shoot the teleporter so it doesn't work, gets her out of there. And then it's so sad, man. I mean, the ending to this, he's full fly and stuff. It's after the face rips apart and stuff. That looks so cool. And he's just on his knees and he just, begs to her in a way to kill him. And she has to pick up the shotgun and blow out the brains of the guy that she loved, and just collapses in hysterics. But what a goddamn classic. Such a good movie. Might be my third favorite Cronenberg. Like I said, The Brood's my favorite, then Scanners. Then it's kind of a toss-up between Videodrome and this film. So it's definitely top 5. But like I said, top 10 practical effects work in a film. So that's David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986. So, all right, guys, what a great rewatch. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who tuned in earlier and watched the replay and shared out the interview with Alex Vincent. It was such a blast. Those of you who saw it, you guys have given great feedback. It was such a blast and a great time talking to Andy Barclay. Next up, franchise-wise, the Critters franchise. Now, I don't remember seeing past the second one, and even the first two I barely remember. It's probably been 10 years or more since I've seen Critters, any of the films. And there's 5 and a 9-episode or 8-episode web series. So we're going to dive into the world of Critters. I don't know what's up with me the last month and a half with little creature films. With Gremlins 2, the whole Ghoulies franchise. Now we're going into Critters. I mean, maybe we'll have to do Hobgoblins and Munchies at some point, too. All right, guys, wherever you're from, hope you're having a great morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody. Love you.